He was late again, and this time I swore I was going to throw the damn package right back at his face. Except when I opened the door, he wasn't holding a box, was holding coffee. I blinked, half in irritation, half in disbelief. For weeks now, the delivery guy had been circling my apartment like some stubborn stray cat. Packages that weren't mine, mistakes in addresses, endless knocking when I was dead tired from work. He'd show up with that lopsided grin, apologizing too quickly, talking too much. I thought he was incompetent, or maybe bored. But tonight, as the fading sunlight stretched long shadows across the street and the cicadas hummed their end-of-summer songs, I realized I might have been wrong about him. Dead wrong. I started, still gripping the doorframe like it might steady me. "Where's the package?" He laughed, a warm, easy sound that carried too well in the evening air. "No package today. Just this." He lifted the coffee cup slightly, like a truce flag. "I thought maybe we could, talk. Without the cardboard boxes between us this time." And that's when I felt it had unsettling shift, the kind that makes your stomach twist and your heart kick at your ribs. Because suddenly he wasn't just the delivery guy anymore. He was someone standing in front of me, bold enough to break the script. His name was Jason. I learned that within the first 10 minutes of reluctantly letting him into my apartment. Jason with sunburned arms from long delivery routes. Jason with a voice that sometimes cracked when he got nervous. Jason with eyes the color of storm clouds that never seemed to settle. I hated that I noticed. "I figured you hated me," he admitted with a sheepish grin, tapping the coffee lid like he needed something to do with his hands. "You always looked like you wanted to slam the door in my face." "I did," I said flatly, because honesty was easier than kindness. He laughed again, not offended, just leaning back against the arm of my couch like he belonged there. "Fair. But maybe, now you'll let me try to change your mind." It was ridiculous. It was intrusive. It was completely insane that this guy thought he could walk into my life and ask for more than a signature on a delivery slip. And yet, the way he looked at me like I wasn't just another address on his list unsettled something inside me I had kept carefully locked away. The first time I said yes, it wasn't because I wanted to. It was because he made it sound so damn harmless. Coffee at the corner shop. Just talking. Just laughing. Just two guys figuring out if the world would implode if they sat across from each other without a cardboard box in the middle. Except the world didn't implode. It spun. Harder. Faster. Like it was daring me to keep up. Jason was infuriatingly good at making me laugh. He teased me about my sarcastic remarks, and I teased him back about his awful habit of humming while sipping coffee. He told me stories about his younger sister, about growing up in a small town where everyone knew his business, about dreams he kept putting off because life kept getting in the way. And somewhere between the laughter and the stories, I felt my walls cracking. And that terrified me, because I had spent years building those walls. Years of pretending I didn't care, of brushing off my parents' disappointed sighs, of shoving down the kind of loneliness that gnawed at me when the nights got too quiet. I knew what it meant to let someone in. It meant giving them the power to leave. But Jason leaned in like he wasn't afraid of breaking anything. The first touch happened when neither of us was brave enough to name it. A brush of his hand against mine as he passed me the sugar. Too quick, too casual, but it lingered. My chest tightened. His eyes flickered, searching mine for something I wasn't ready to give. Pulled away. He let me. But later, walking home, I realized I could still feel the ghost of his skin on mine. It wasn't all easy. In fact, it got messy fast. My coworkers noticed the way I smiled at my phone more often. My landlord gave me a look when Jason's van showed up too many nights in a row. And then came the harder questions, the ones I had spent years avoiding. Was I willing to be seen with him? Was I ready to risk the whispers, the stares, the quiet judgment in a town that wasn't as open as it pretended to be? Jason didn't push, but he didn't hide either. He stood too close when we walked side by side. He laughed too loud when I rolled my eyes. He let his hand hover near mine, like he was asking a silent question every damn day. And the worst part? I wanted to say yes, every time. The night it broke open was the night I caught myself yelling at him. You don't get it, I snapped, shoving the door shut behind me as he stood there, rain dripping from his jacket. You just show up like it's so simple, like this can actually work. But it's not simple, Jason. It's never been simple. He didn't flinch. He just stood there, soaked to the bone, breathing hard like he'd run a mile. You think I don't know that? You think I haven't thought about what people will say, what they'll do? I've thought about it every damn night. And guess what? I still came back. I'm still here. My throat burned. My fists clenched. And yet, in that storm, something inside me finally snapped, not in anger, but in surrender. Because he wasn't wrong. He was still here. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted him to be. That was the night he kissed me. It wasn't fireworks or slow-motion movie magic. It was desperate, clumsy, rain-slicked lips crashing together like we were both too tired of running from the inevitable. I felt his hands grip my jacket, pulling me closer, grounding me in a world that suddenly felt less terrifying with him in it. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe. Jason's kiss lingered like a bruise I didn't want to heal. It should have terrified me. It should have sent me sprinting back into the safety of my walls, locking every door, sealing every window. Instead, I stood there in the rain, letting him hold on, tasting something that felt dangerously close to freedom. When we finally pulled apart, his forehead rested against mine, his breath uneven. You don't have to say anything, he whispered. Not tonight. But silence has always been my worst enemy. Silence leaves room for thoughts to rot and fester. So I said the only thing I could manage without breaking apart completely. You're soaked. Get inside. He laughed softly, disbelief cutting through the exhaustion in his eyes, and followed me in. His shoes squelched against the hardwood floor. Water dripped from his hair onto his jacket. But none of that mattered because the second the door shut, the world outside disappeared. We sat in silence at first, the storm beating against the windows, the air thick with everything we weren't ready to name. My chest ached with the weight of it. Finally, Jason spoke. You don't have to explain. I know it's a lot. I stared at him, at the way he twisted his hands together like he was holding back the urge to reach for me again. You don't know, I said quietly. You don't know how it feels to keep people at arm's length your whole life, because you're scared one wrong move will cost you everything. His eyes softened, storm gray meeting the sharp edges of my fear. You think I don't get that? I grew up in a town where people still whispered if a guy wore the wrong color shirt. You think I didn't hear the jokes, the slurs, he stopped, his jaw tightening. I know exactly what it costs. And I'm still here. It wasn't just his words. It was the way he said them. Not demanding, not pleading, just steady, solid. Like he could see through all my excuses and wasn't afraid of what lay underneath. And God, I hated how much I wanted to believe him. The next few weeks blurred together, equal parts chaos and quiet miracles. Jason found excuses to see me sometimes with actual deliveries, sometimes with nothing but coffee and that infuriating grin. He'd tease me about my messy kitchen, about the stack of unread books on my nightstand, about how I always pretended I hated his company even when I was laughing at his jokes. And I let him in, piece by piece. Started small, letting him stay a little longer than necessary, sharing bits of my day, things I never bothered telling anyone else. The first time I reached for his hand without thinking, I nearly pulled back in panic. But he squeezed gently, grounding me, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Of course, the world noticed. One evening, walking back from the cafe, Jason brushed against me, and I didn't move away fast enough. A woman on the corner raised her eyebrows. A man glanced twice, his mouth twisting. By the time we got home, I was shaking. Jason shut the door behind us, his face tight. Don't, he said quietly, reading my panic before I could even open my mouth. Don't start pulling away again. You saw them, I snapped, pacing the living room like a caged animal. You saw how they looked at us. You know what people say, I don't care. His voice was sharp, cutting through my fear. I care about you. That's it. My chest constricted. It's not that simple. It is for me. He stepped closer, and I hated that I didn't move away. I don't care about the looks, the whispers. I care about whether you'll let me stay. His words lodged deep inside me, a thorn and a lifeline all at once. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be brave enough to meet the world head-on with him at my side. But bravery had never been my strong suit. The breaking point came at my office holiday party. Jason wasn't supposed to be there. He had finished his shift late and just wanted to drop by, to say hi, to remind me that even in a room full of fake smiles and cheap champagne, I wasn't alone. But the second he walked in, I felt the air shift. My boss's polite smile tightened. A coworker whispered behind her hand. And when Jason reached for my arm, just casually, like he always did, I froze, pulled away. The look on his face, I'll never forget it. Hurt flashing behind his eyes, quickly smothered by a too bright smile. He covered it with a joke, with easy charm, but I saw it. And I hated myself for it. He didn't stay long. Just long enough to make sure I saw what I was losing. We didn't talk for days after that. The silence was worse than any argument. Worse than the rainstorm fight. Worse than the judgmental stares. Because this silence was empty. Hollow. It meant I had pushed too hard. And he had finally decided maybe I wasn't worth the effort. But I couldn't stop thinking about him. The way he laughed. The way he held his coffee like it was an extension of himself. The way he looked at me like I wasn't broken, like I was something worth fighting for. And for the first time, I asked myself, what was I so afraid of losing? The answer hit me like a punch. Him. It was late when I finally showed up at his place. His sister answered the door, her eyes wide with recognition. "You're the guy," she said, not unkindly. "The one he won't shut up about." My throat tightened. "Is he here?" She nodded, stepping aside. Jason was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, his phone in his hand. He looked up when I walked in, and the guarded expression on his face nearly broke me. "I messed up," I blurted before he could say anything. My voice cracked, raw. "At the party. I was scared. I thought if I pulled away I'd be safe. But all it did was make me realize I don't want safe. I want you." The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then Jason set his phone down slowly, his eyes never leaving mine. "You hurt me," he said simply. "I know." My voice trembled. "And I'll probably screw up again. But I'm tired of pretending I don't care. I do. I care so damn much it scares me." For a long moment, he just stared at me, searching my face for something real, and then finally let out a shaky laugh. "You're an idiot," he said softly, stepping closer. "Yeah," I breathed. "But I'm your idiot. If you'll still have me." His hand reached up, cupping my jaw, and for the first time, there was no hesitation in me when I leaned in. The kiss was slower this time, steadier, not desperate, not clumsy, just real. And in that moment, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning. If the kiss at his kitchen was a beginning, then what followed was the real test. Loving Jason in private was easy. Too easy. It was the mornings he showed up with coffee, the nights we fell asleep on the couch halfway through a movie, the quiet way he'd touch the back of my neck when I was stressed. With him, everything felt lighter, like the world couldn't touch us if we didn't let it. But the world doesn't like being ignored. The first crack came from my parents. My mother called one Sunday afternoon, her voice sharp even before she said hello. "I heard something," she said, and my stomach dropped. "From your aunt. She said she saw you in town. With someone." I swallowed hard. And you were holding hands. With a man." The silence that followed was heavier than thunder. I could hear my father in the background, asking who she was talking to. My mother lowered her voice, but not enough. "Tell me it's not true. Tell me she misunderstood. I should have lied. God, it would have been easier." But Jason's voice echoed in my mind. "I'm still here." So I told the truth. "It's true," I said quietly. The phone line went silent, then sharp with my mother's broken voice. "Do you have any idea what you're doing to this family?" Jason found me on the balcony that night, curled in a chair, staring at the city lights. I didn't even realize I was shaking until he touched my shoulder. What happened? My mom knows, I whispered. She knows about us. His hand tensed, then steadied. What did she say? I let out a bitter laugh. That I'm ruining everything. He was quiet for a moment, then crouched beside me. Listen, he said firmly, tilting my chin so I had to meet his eyes. You're not ruining anything. You're just finally being yourself. If they can't handle that, it's on them. Not you. Tears burned my eyes, but I blinked them away. It's not that simple. It never is, he agreed softly. But I'm here. We'll figure it out. The certainty in his voice was a lifeline I didn't know I needed. Not everyone was against us. Jason's sister Emily became an unexpected ally. She'd invite us over for dinner, teasing us mercilessly but always making sure I felt welcome. You know, she said once, grinning as she handed me a plate. He's been miserable for years, until you, so don't even think about running. I rolled my eyes, but her words stuck. At work, though, it was different. The whispers grew louder. One coworker made a joke in the break room, not realizing I'd walked in. My boss, who used to invite me to networking events, suddenly stopped including me. The walls of the office I had worked so hard to climb felt smaller, colder. Jason noticed the change in me, even when I tried to hide it. One night, after I snapped at him over something stupid, dirty dishes, I think finally called me out. You're shutting down again, he said quietly. You can tell me you're fine all you want, but I can see it. You're scared, and you're angry, but don't push me out. Please. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him he didn't understand what it felt like to lose the respect of people I had worked years to prove myself to. But when I saw the hurt in his eyes, the fight drained out of me. I'm scared, I admitted finally. My voice cracked on the words. I don't know if I'm strong enough to handle all this. Jason didn't hesitate. He pulled me into his arms, pressing his cheek against my hair. Then let me be strong for both of us. At least for now. And for the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe. But love doesn't just survive in secret. It demands to be seen. Jason wanted that. He wanted dinners out where he could reach for my hand without me flinching. He wanted to meet my friends without being introduced as just a guy I know. He wanted me to stop hiding him like something I was ashamed of. And I wanted to give him that. God, I wanted to. But wanting and doing are two very different things. The night it all boiled over, we were supposed to meet some of my old college friends at a bar. I told Jason to come later, that I'd test the waters first. He showed up anyway, walking through the door with that easy confidence that made people turn their heads. Panicked. I didn't introduce him. I barely looked at him. When he finally cornered me outside, his jaw was tight. What are we doing? What do you mean? I mean this. He gestured between us, his voice raw. Are we real? Or are we just something you keep in the dark? Because I can't keep pretending it doesn't kill me every time you act like I don't matter. His words cut deeper than any insult ever could. Because he was right. I'm trying, I said desperately. Don't you see that? I'm trying to be brave. But you're not, he interrupted, his voice breaking. And I don't know how much longer I can wait. The silence between us was unbearable. I wanted to tell him I loved him. The words clawed at my throat. But fear held me back, like it always did. So he walked away. And this time he didn't look back. The days after were a blur of emptiness. His absence was everywhere, in my phone, in the coffee shop we used to haunt, in the silence of my apartment that suddenly felt too big. I threw myself into work, into anything that would numb the ache. But nothing worked. Because the truth was simple. Without Jason, the walls I had built didn't protect me anymore. They only imprisoned me. It took me a week to realize I couldn't live like that. It took me another to gather the courage to do something about it. I showed up at his place again, heart pounding like it might split open. Emily answered the door, her expression unreadable. He's in the garage, she said finally, fixing his bike. Or maybe avoiding the world. You decide. I found him hunched over the frame of a motorcycle, grease staining his hands. his hair falling into his eyes. He didn't look up when I walked in. "Jason," I said, my voice trembling. "Nothing. I was a coward," I admitted, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "I thought hiding us would make it easier, but all it did was make me lose the best thing I've ever had. You." His hands stilled on the wrench, but he still didn't meet my eyes. "I don't care what people say anymore," I continued, stepping closer. "I don't care if my mom never speaks to me again, if my coworkers keep whispering. None of it matters without you. You're the one thing that makes any of this worth it. And I'm done pretending otherwise." Finally, he looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed, his jaw clenched, but his voice was steady. "Do you mean that? Or are you just saying it because you're afraid of being alone?" I shook my head fiercely. "I mean it. I've never meant anything more in my life." The silence stretched, heavy and fragile. Then Jason set down the wrench, wiped his hands on a rag, and stood. He was right in front of me now, so close I could feel the heat radiating off him. "Then prove it," he whispered. I didn't hesitate this time. I reached for him, pulled him close, and kissed him like the world could watch if it wanted. Because for once, I didn't care. That night, we didn't just find each other again. We made a choice, promise, to stop hiding, to fight together, to build something real no matter how many walls we had to break. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. Love is easy in whispers. It's harder in daylight. The first time Jason held my hand in public after we reconciled, it was at the Saturday farmer's market. The sun was high, the smell of fresh bread and peaches in the air, kids darting between stalls. Jason reached down casually, slid his fingers into mine, and didn't let go. My heart stopped. Not because I didn't want it, but because I did. Because I wanted it so badly that the fear felt almost irrelevant. A few people looked. One man scowled. A woman whispered something to her friend. But Jason's thumb brushed the back of my hand, grounding me, and I realized something I should have known all along. The world would always have opinions. But opinions didn't love me. Jason did. The real test came at Christmas. My mother called again, her voice brittle but less sharp. "Come home for dinner," she said. "Your father and I. We need to talk." Jason squeezed my hand when I told him, his expression cautious. "Do you want me there?" I hesitated, fear curling in my chest. But then I remembered the emptiness of living without him, the way silence had nearly destroyed us. "Yes," I said firmly. "With me." Walking into my childhood home with Jason at my side felt like walking into a battlefield. The living room smelled like pine and cinnamon. The tree glittered in the corner, but the air was tense. My mother's lips pressed thin. My father barely looked at us. Dinner was strained. My father asked Jason about his job, his van, his family, each question clipped and suspicious. Jason answered calmly, politely, never once letting go of my hand beneath the table. Finally, my mother set her fork down with a sharp clink. "I don't understand," she said, her voice cracking. "We raised you better than this. You could have had a normal life. A wife, children, a family." Something inside me snapped. "Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "This is my family. Him. Right here. I love him. And if you can't accept that, then you don't accept me." The words hung in the air like broken glass. Jason's hand tightened around mine, steadying me. My father's face was unreadable. For a long time, he said nothing. Then finally, he sighed. "He makes you happy?" I blinked, stunned. "Yes, more than I've ever been." My father looked at Jason, his eyes narrowing. "Then don't hurt him, and don't let him hurt you." It wasn't acceptance. Not fully. But it wasn't rejection either. It was a beginning. My mother left the table in tears, but I caught the flicker of something softer in her eyes before she turned away. Maybe, just maybe, time could do what words couldn't. After that night, things didn't magically fix themselves. My parents didn't suddenly wave rainbow flags or invite Jason over every weekend. My coworkers didn't all stop whispering. The world didn't change overnight. But I did. I stopped apologizing for who I was. I stopped pulling my hand away in public. I stopped hiding the way Jason's laughter lit up a room, or the way he looked at me like I was worth every risk. And in return, Jason gave me something I hadn't realized I'd been missing all along: peace. Months later, on a quiet spring morning, he showed up outside my apartment with 2 coffees and that same nervous grin he'd worn the very first day. "Remember when you thought I was just some annoying delivery guy?" he teased, handing me the cup. I laughed, shaking my head. "You were annoying." "Still am," he said, stepping closer. Then his voice softened. "But I'm also yours, if you'll keep me." I didn't need grand speeches. I didn't need fireworks. I just leaned in, kissed him slow and sure, and whispered against his lips, "Always." The truth is, love isn't about never being afraid. It's about choosing each other despite the fear. It's about standing side by side when the world whispers, and laughing louder so the whispers fade. Jason taught me that, and every time I take his hand in mine, every time I wake to his messy hair and sleepy smile, I thank the universe that he knocked on my door with coffee instead of another damn package. Because what I thought was a nuisance turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.